You have made a grave mistake, Odin's son.
I made it.
Weapon
Would you kill me, my love?
for Wakanda. Without question.
To every hero, there is a villain, and in the case of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there are all kinds of villains out there who are either waiting to be fought or have been already fought by the various heroes of the Avengers and beyond. Now, that being said, a lot of villains have been killed in one form or another, even ones that honestly shouldn't have died. But let's be honest here, to be fair, there are still some that are more than capable of fighting right now. So with that, allow us to show you 9 MCU villains that are still lurking around. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 9, Baron Zemo. Now the funny thing about this video is that there are some MCU villains that we can easily confirm right now are going to come back to the fold. And the first one is Zemo. Colonel Zemo, as he was known, was introduced in Captain America: Civil War, a movie that started a lot of things and is still being felt in terms of consequences to this day. In the film, he orchestrated the events that led to the deaths of T'Chaka and the Wakandan delegates on the Sokovia Accords, and the framing of Bucky Barnes, and then of course the Civil War that divided the Avengers. And even though Black Panther didn't let him have his perfect ending, he still felt he had achieved a perfect victory by splitting up the Avengers and avenging his own family, which many people didn't like, because in the MCU, Zemo was portrayed because he was just a simple man with an overcomplicated plan, and not anything like the brilliant leader that eternally hates Captain America, and was also the son of the first Baron Zemo. It's another classic, new take on a classic character, and many felt that it actually fell flat. However, we are getting him back in the upcoming Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he will at least look more like Baron Zemo via his purple mask. How will he act? Well, we'll find out soon. Number 8, Loki. Part 2 of the characters that we know will return is Loki. In the events of Avengers Endgame, a time-traveling snafu led to Loki getting the Tesseract and using it to beam himself away from his brother and thus screwing up the timeline. Loki gets picked up by a certain time travel agency, and certain events are going to happen that may lead to many big things in the future for not just the character, but the MCU as a whole. Do recall that this isn't the humbler Loki that we get in Thor: Dark World and Ragnarok, but rather the evil one from the end of the first Avengers movie. His Disney Plus series is easily one of the most anticipated of the bunch, and it's not exactly hard to see why, given how Tom Hiddleston has portrayed him. Number 7, Surtur. Surtur is one of the biggest villains in the roster of Thor. He's a flaming deity from one of the 9 realms, and we met him in Thor: Ragnarok. Now, Thor dispatched him early on in the movie, but in a twist, they used him to go and defeat Hela and thus bring about Ragnarok on Asgard. But if you recall, they not only stopped him afterward, they kinda just ran away and left him to his own bidding. So that means that he is still out there, arguably in his most powerful form, and no one has stopped him yet. And given Thor's state of mind after Infinity War and Endgame, we doubt he went and took care of him, and thus he very much could come back should he want to. Now, will he appear in the 4th Thor film that is filming right now? Well, we know Gore the God Butcher will arrive in Thor: Love and Thunder, but will Surtur make an appearance as well? It's possible, and it would be odd for him not to at least be referenced. Number 6, Red Skull. The Red Skull is a character that many wanted to see portrayed on screen, and when he arrived via Captain America: The First Avenger, people were shocked that he was taken away by the Tesseract by the end of the film. Now, we all knew he would come back, and sure enough, Infinity War answered that question when Thanos went to Vormir to retrieve the Soul Stone, and he was there to greet them. He had become more of a specter than a man, who was deemed to be the protector of the stone and to warn people of the cost of taking the item for themselves. Though we don't see him after the events of what happened with Hawkeye and Black Widow in Endgame, it is implied that he's still around since Captain America returned the stone to the timeline, and it is possible that those stones aren't completely gone. Now, many want to see one last confrontation between the Red Skull and a certain someone, so we might just have to wait and see what happens. Number 5, Baron Mordo. In the first Doctor Strange movie, Mordo was the one who basically recruited Stephen Strange to train with the Ancient One, and he fought alongside him as the various wizards tried to use the power of Dormammu to create havoc. However, after Doctor Strange broke the rules to defeat the Dark Entity, Mordo broke mentally and realized that there are too many sorcerers in the world, and apparently went on a mission to go and get rid of the world of those who would use magic improperly. And that is where things get weird, because while he is 100% out there, regardless of the snap, he hasn't been seen since the 2016 film, and the Multiverse of Madness hasn't even started filming yet. And so, will he return? Well, being as he's one of the top dogs in Strange's Rogues Gallery, it is very likely. But when? And will he be as impactful as they were intending him to be at the end of that first film? Number 4, Celestials. Let's go back to the ones that we know are coming, this time through the biggest of scales, as in divine entities. The Celestials are beings who not only help shape life on Earth, they were the ones who created things like the Eternals, the Deviants, the Mutants, in the comics at least, and have a bad habit of just going and wrecking worlds whenever they feel like it. Now, we saw a glimpse of them via the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and they're going to appear again in Eternals. And given that their power would even make the Avengers in the comics shake, you can bet that they won't be that easy to get rid of when the time comes. What's more, there are a lot of them, so even if the Eternals take care of one, there is a lot more to come. Number 3, Abomination. In the Incredible Hulk film, the second MCU movie, we saw the arrival of Emil Blonsky, a Special Forces officer who was hired to take down the Hulk and yet failed, and thus was injected with a special super soldier serum that turned him into the Abomination. Now, Hulk defeated Blonsky in the Battle of Harlem, and ever since then he has been in a cryosleep in Alaska via a S.H.I.E.L.D. base. He is still there actually, and it is referenced again in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. one time. Now, unlike many of the villains on this list, it's honestly very doubtful that this villain will return for various reasons. Not the least of which is that he wasn't the most beloved villain, and with the state of the Hulk films in eternal limbo, that's why he was a major supporting character in Ragnarok, we don't think that he'll be returning. But you never know. Number 2, W'Kabi. Now, you could argue that W'Kabi from the Black Panther movie wasn't a villain, but those who watched the movie know that he did go from a friend to an enemy and stayed that way by the end. W'Kabi was the best friend to T'Challa and partner to Okoye, but when T'Challa failed to bring Klaue into justice and Eric Killmonger showed up, he was more than happy to ally himself with the new king and bring true justice to the world, since Wakanda had the ability to truly seize power. Even when T'Challa returned, W'Kabi and his warriors fought for Killmonger until eventually they surrendered. W'Kabi's actor has noted that he's not sure his character will return for the second movie, but he said that he would return if asked. Number 1, Justin Hammer. Iron Man 2 dove deep into the Iron Man Rogues Gallery to bring forth a lot of bad guys like Whiplash, and then of course Justin Hammer. Hammer was another arms dealer who was envious of Tony Stark, and he teamed up with Whiplash to try and bring down the Tony Stark Empire. They both failed, and Hammer was arrested and put in jail for helping a terrorist. In fact, he was seen for a second time in the Marvel one-shot Hail to the King. So, he is still out there, and with Armor Wars coming to Disney+, we might just see him pop up again. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at the various villains of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that aren't dead and could absolutely come back to haunt people in one form or another in the future? Which villains that we listed do you personally want to see back in action sooner rather than later? Which ones do you think won't get a chance at a victory for one reason or another? Is there a key villain that maybe we didn't even mention? Let us know in the comments below, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.